This episode of the Off-Road Podcast is sponsored by Warren. Nope. Don't
You're
know.
very quiet.
Oh, how about now?
Nope, still quiet.
Somebody else read it.
This episode of the Off-Road Podcast is sponsored by Warren, Medical Gear Outfitters, and Colby Valve.
Off-Road Podcast, episode 353, Element Fire Extinguishers.
Tonight, can people hear me?
Yes.
Aaron pulls the trigger on something. Ben toots his horn, and Jeremy returns.
Welcome to the Off-Road Podcast, a podcast about everything off-road. We cover the news, review products, and interview people in the off-road industry. Your hosts tonight are Aaron, Ben, and returning Jeremy. And welcome our guest, Rob from Element. And welcome to the show.
The weekend review is brought to you by Medical Gear Outfitters. What are you waiting for? Are you waiting to have a casualty on the trail? Check out medicalgearoutfitters.com to get straightened out. Medical Gear Outfitters has everything you need, whether you're going out for the day or traveling on a year-long expedition. Head over there to get off-road specific kits that meet all of your needs. And while you're there, make sure you use Off-Road Podcast for 10% off. Well, Aaron, what have you been up to?
Well, this kind of ties into Medical Gear Outfitters. I was at a men's retreat over the weekend, and I led a small class about go bags, bug out bags, things like that. And I got to show off all of my first aid gear. And what was fun about that was I had brought my wife's truck, and so I had the one of the first aid kits that we built through Medical Gear Outfitters. And what was cool about that is I also found in her truck, I didn't plan this, but it was just perfect. I found one of these first aid kits that I don't know where you get it from, if they just give it to you at the fair from like the police department, but it was literally a half-inch thick. It was barely thicker than the lift on the Kia Telluride. And it's literally like the size of a 3x5 card. And I showed that to everybody. I said, how many people have a first aid kit like this in their car? And several people raised their hand. I'm like, well, any guesses what's in it? And I turn it sideways so everybody can see how thick it is. And everybody's, well, they're like, there's Band-Aids in there. I'm like, yeah, there's Band-Aids and like some alcohol prep pads. There's nothing really in these. Maybe some gauze, I said. And then I showed the giant bulging one from Medical Gear Outfitters. And so it was awesome to be able to show off what was in there, the SAM splint and the tourniquets and things that you don't see in the off-the-shelf ones that you buy from the grocery stores. So, and then while I was at the men's event, I got to do some shooting, which was always a good time. How about you, Ben?
Oh, where should I start off? Well, I got back into 3D printing. I printed this week. It's
Is that a belt buckle?
It's a cover for my center console. I've got some Toyota buttons there, so like my downhill, and I've got a USB plug, and I'm getting ready to install a new one because I printed. Well, actually, I'll show the video first. I printed a train horn. Power tank, powered train horn. Now that's a little obnoxiously large to put on my 4Runner.
Was that at like 5:30 in the morning? Did your neighbor?
It was like 9:30.
Okay.
And so my neighbor, he texts me and he's like, "What was that? It scared my dogs." And then
Like how they just knew to text Ben right away.
oh yeah, everybody knows it.
Any question, it was just straight to Ben. Ben, what did you do?
Yep.
Yeah, Ben.
Everybody needs a redneck neighbor. And so
Tim says that is the perfect size for your 4Runner, and I completely agree. What else are you going to put up on that roof rack?
I have no idea, but so I printed another one, and I cut them down. I still have the long tubes, so I can do the 4 foot long, or no, they were 5 foot long ones, and mount it on top of the runner.
How does this sound in comparison to the little ones?
It's sharper and not as dubstep.
It doesn't have all that reverb.
Yeah, not as much reverb. Someone suggested trying some copper tubing. So I might try that if I can find some 1-inch copper tubing. That's not going to cost me an arm and a leg. But I
Doesn't
figured
it?
that'd
It
set
has
me-
to have the same outside diameter though to fit into the sleeve.
exactly.
Usually it's the inside diameter that matches, not the outsides on that.
Yeah,
kind of
so I've got to figure that out, and I might be able to resize it a little bit.
Tim wants you to
work
blow
out.
in it. You can't. You don't have enough pressure in your lungs to toot
Not
the
enough
horn
pressure to
yourself?
do. Not enough pressure to toot my horn.
All right.
Is this like trying to lock a air locker with your
Yeah,
blowing into it?
exactly.
Only 15 pounds, right, Aaron?
Yeah. No, that's not what I said.
Yeah, I actually
It's like 85 pounds.
Yeah.
so I actually woke my wife up that second time when I recorded that. And yeah, Rob probably is wondering, these guys are crazy. I actually blew the diaphragm, so I had to print a diaphragm for it so that it has something to bounce the noise off of, or the air to make the noise. Yeah, I blew a diaphragm on it, and so I was like, well, time for another one. And my
Is
I
that
texted
because
my
you
wife,
were
she woke me up.
is that because you were sending too much pressure through it?
Yeah, full power tank on full blast to just see how loud I could make it.
Nice.
Yeah, that video actually did pretty good for views. I was amazed at how many views it got in 24 hours.
Awesome. Did Power Tank respond?
No, power tank never responded.
Suckers.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to text Steve, be like, what's up, man?
There you go.
So
Yeah, Rick, I didn't get the memo on the shirt color tonight.
somebody's got to be the black sheep.
Yeah, that'll be me.
So yeah, that's been about it. I just trying to fix up stuff on the 4Runner. Actually, the wife's car is down right now. Had to replace the hybrid battery, and they're like, "Oh, have you done this and this?" I'm like, "Yeah, no. I used to work on cars. I know what I'm doing. Like, you guys need to come back rated." So
Yeah.
that's been fun.
Wait, I feel like I remember talking about hybrid batteries with Ben's car. Is this not the first time that that's happened?
So I had the battery replaced, or soon after we bought it, and it comes with a lifetime warranty through the company that's replaced it. They came out. No, it's Green Bean batteries. They actually came out. They replaced it because there's a bad cell in it, and then my wife went to take it to work, and the ABS lights were on, and so they're like, "Oh, call on Monday when our guy's there." And I called, and they're like, "All right, try disconnecting the battery, see if that resets it." And I did that, and now it won't even start. So they're gonna be coming back tomorrow, or else.
You try turning it off and back on again.
Pretty much. That's exactly how that worked out. I was not happy about that.
And now we're stranded.
Yep. Well, no. Now the wife's taking my 4Runner to work tonight. And
No, but I mean, if that would have happened somewhere other than home, that would have been awful.
yeah. So
You'd have had to use Rick's. You'd have had to use Rick's AAA.
yeah. always a good thing to have.
And he
Rick,
lives a lot farther from you now, so that's asking him to drive like an extra half hour now.
yeah, I'll actually have to use my AAA or my insurance, one or the other. So yeah. What about you, Jeremy? What's new, man? Welcome back.
It's good to be back. So I can't remember exactly how much you guys talked about on the show with what Olivia's accident was, but she kind of pulled a pot of some clarifying butter down on herself and burned herself on about 20% of her body. So we've been in and out of the hospital, 2 skin grafts later. She's doing really good. She's kind of back to her, I mean, she very quickly went back to her old personality. So that was really, really, really good to see. And she's kind of on we're hoping that she's done with the hospital stays. Now that she's got her second skin graft, and we were for a while going over twice a week to get bandage changes. So that's slowed down now. She has her first telehealth check-in tomorrow, which is it's kind of nice because where the burn center is like an hour and a half away. We have to go over into Seattle, so she's doing really good. And yeah, it's good to kind of be on the other side of it for the most part. I mean, she's still going to have some struggles with finishing healing, and then she'll probably have to do some sort of PT, and potentially she's going to have to kind of get some cosmetic stuff later on, just to, and by cosmetic I mean as she kind of grows, the skin grafts don't quite grow with her, so they need to kind of make sure that she's got enough skin, and so they might need to do some corrective surgery down the road. But fingers crossed, knock on wood, hopefully that's kind of limited, and she should pretty much recover or she should recover with minimal scarring, or she might have some discoloration, and that may or may not stay with her the rest of her life. But since she's so young, at only 2, they think a lot of that's going to kind of go away.
Your audio faded out a lot, Jeremy. I'm not sure why, but you didn't move.
Interesting.
No, it's
back.
Got
I
it.
don't know what's going on.
Yep. So it's good to be back. I hate taking time away from the podcast, but sometimes family's got to come first. So yeah. Other than that,
it's all right. You had a couple okay people standing in for you. Coy was just all right, and
Yeah.
you did a pretty good job, but Coy was just all right.
according to Tim.
Yeah.
So other than that, on the off-roading front, I was finally got out to do a little off-roading. It's been quite a long time. I mean, it was before Olivia's accident. So I finally got out to go and see the new South Loop over in Tahuya. So they were logging it for a while, and they just finished maybe, I don't know, a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. They finished rehabbing the trail and getting it and building it back up, since the the loggers kind of come through and they kind of demolish most of it to run the logging roads and do their thing. So yeah, that was fun. It's a good looking trail now. A lot more difficult than the original South Loop was. So I'm happy to see that. There's a rock garden that I'm pretty interested in hitting. But it definitely needed another Jeep there. And a spotter. So I was just out there with my son. So
can I run through it?
Why's it got to be another Jeep? Why does it have to be another Jeep?
Or okay, another vehicle with a winch.
Okay.
Recovery duty.
Well, that's not me, as you may have heard in the last episode where I got stuck in my field and my winch stopped working. So don't call me until I get new tires and a winch fixed.
I didn't hear that one.
Yeah, it just released.
Ooh. Yikes.
Tim wants to know if there's any ditches for Ben in the South Loop.
There are ditches for Ben, yeah.
Sweet.
Plenty
So could I make it through South Loop?
Oh yeah. There were a lot other. So they did a really good job in making it as hard as you wanted to make it. There's definitely some harder lines and some easier lines. There were people out there, and granted, it was a pretty well lifted Tundra with some sliders, but somebody who's still out there with a Tundra. It's definitely not a tight trail like a lot of Tahuya.
What is with your audio going quiet?
Are you sure it's not the auto?
I turned it off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's a good trail. I'm happy with the work they did.
You're quiet.
Am I still?
Yeah.
All right, roll the next thing, and I'll get my log back in.
Hey guys, we're looking to reach more listeners. We're going to start reading Apple iTunes reviews on air. If you hear yours, send us a message with your address, and we'll send you an Off-Road Podcast sticker. You can find all of our social media by just searching our name. Now, go hit that subscribe button.
And I'd like to add that not only just iTunes, if you send us a review on like because you don't have iTunes, send us something on Gmail or whatever. We'll consider that as well.
Yeah, and I think you can do reviews through Facebook also.
Yep, those are always appreciated on helping people find us.
Yeah. We also want to thank our sponsor, Patriot Patch. Head over to patriotpatch.co and check out their selection of great patches, shirts, cleaning mats, signs, and stickers. You can also join the Patch of the Month Club for $15 and receive a patch, matching sticker, and artist proof each month.
You're muted.
Now we don't have. He's still muted. Jeremy, you're muted. I don't know what's going on. What in the world? Tim wants to point out that neither Andy nor Coy had any mic problems. They were very professional.
Hello?
That was really weird. Aaron was quiet there for a second.
I don't know what's going on. Gotta love the internet.
Now Aaron's quiet, and every time he speaks, something weird happens.
What in the world? Well, someone do the news.
Oh, we still have Patriot Patch, don't we?
Oh, yeah, you're right. Patriot Patch. Am I still weird?
Nope, you're good.
All right. So this month's Patch of the Month is boy, I can't think of what are those guys that stand outside of the Kmart that try to get you to buy the flowers, the poppies for this is the VFW guys for $2.
Kmart hasn't been around for a while, so
I know you get
Showing
my
your
point.
age.
They stand outside the stores, but anyways, this patch is a soldier. This must be a like a Korean war soldier. He's got a looks like a M1 Garand or something, but it's got a big scope on it. He's got a 1911 strapped to his chest, and he's got the all olive drab colored uniform. So
and gators.
yeah, I saw the gators too. But anyways, it says never forget the price of peace. So
Very tastefully done. I'm very
yeah,
happy.
they always do a good job. They always do a good job. I've actually got man, I'm struggling tonight with all my words. Ryan Cross is doing a design for some friends of mine, doing a logo. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Have tire troubles ever left you deflated? Colby Valve has got you covered. Ever have a valve stem leak? Colby Valve makes reusable and easily replaceable valve stems that don't require you to remove your tire from the wheel. They work with your off-road rig, ATV, side-by-side, commuter vehicle, or even your tractor. Never be left stranded again because of a busted valve stem. They also have a tire repair kit for those punctures that keep you away from doing your favorite thing, wheeling. Make sure to check out colbyvalve.com or ask for them at your local off-road products store.
Rob, have you ever had valve stem problems on a car?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Directly related to the valve stem?
Yeah, in fact, in some forms of racing, what we do is we run this little rubber wedge that goes between the valve stem and the rim, because at high centrifugal forces, the valve stem can be pushed outwards and it can cause a leak at the base. So these little rubber wedges essentially stiffen a rubber valve stem to prevent that from happening.
Clearly, I'm not driving fast enough if I don't need wedges for my valve stems. Well, Colby Valve makes some really neat valve stem replacements. You can just cut the valve stem off the rest of the way if it's damaged and push it down into the wheel, and then you thread this in from the outside, and it squishes on either side of
Cool.
the metal wheel. So kind of a neat thing if you'd never heard of them.
Very, very cool. Yeah, definitely.
Not just for off-roading and tractors.
Well, this week we've got a story. If you are on our Facebook group page, you might have seen pictures that look something like this. Somebody's Bronco went for a swim. This was in Maine near Bar Harbor. Reportedly, they were attempting to drive in the sand at low tide and between the coast and Bar Island. They got out safely, Locals were saying that they were doing donuts in the sand, which goes a long way
Shocker.
towards explaining on how they got stuck in the first place. And the Bronco has since been floated by buoyancy bags that they attached to the underside of the vehicle, and then they towed it out, or they winched it out with a wrecker. So somebody's Bronco is down for the count and probably ruined. You might see it at your local auction soon.
I saw that it was out there for like 3 days. It took them 3 days before they were able to recover it all the way.
Yeah, there was some guys with pickups that were trying to help recover it, but one of their lines snapped, and so they gave up.
Yeah,
Clearly, they were using the wrong type of recovery equipment.
I agree.
That's a
And
problem. I hate to see such a beautiful rig get destroyed by, I don't know. I was gonna say stupidity, but I don't know if stupidity is the right word. Just somebody made a mistake and wasn't prepared to get unstuck, and
Yeah.
now a rig's totaled.
obviously, they didn't lower their tire pressure.
Are those New Jersey license plates? Are they from Jersey?
I don't know.
I
It's hard
can't
for
tell.
Would it be okay if they were?
So our next story here is move over. Oh, I'm sorry, and I should say that article was from Autoblog. Our next story is move over LS. It's time for Tesla. Tesla. There's a company that's doing Tesla crate engines. This comes from Motor Trend. It's called the Revolt Tesla crate motor. Here it is on the screen if you're watching us live. And this is essentially a bolt-in Tesla engine. Obviously, you'll still have the controllers and the batteries that you're going to have to provide, but you can purchase it from this company. It's got an inline gear reduction. So if you were to attach the engine directly without the gear reduction box, you would actually probably blow up that driveline really quickly with the amount of torque that's putting out. They're saying with the gear reduction box, it's the equivalent of 533 horsepower, or 400 kilowatts, and 800 pounds of torque at that yoke.
That's quite a bit.
That's a lot of power. This is just a rear wheel drive setup. I have seen some setups where they have transfer cases so that you can, but I haven't seen it from this company. But I mean, this is just the beginnings of EVs crate engines. So yeah, there's no price that I saw listed on their website. They have a more stock appearing gearing setup, and it runs $11,000, but there's no prices listed on the website for EV West. So
Yeah.
if you have to ask, you probably can't afford it, right?
Yeah. EV West has been in the electric motor conversion business for quite a while. I followed them on Facebook for maybe 6 years now. And in fact, I was at a customer's house a month ago, and they had a couple old Volkswagen vans, like the buses from back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them, they had put an EV West electric motor in, which was really neat. And they are considering putting a Tesla motor in it too, which I think would just be way too much power for that little bus. I think it would rip that bus in half.
Well, I mean, if it's capable of that power, but you don't use as much of it.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. You don't always have to go at 100%. That's something I'm not very good at not very good at not doing. I like to go at 100%.
There's
tires so fast.
Yeah.
Don't tell my wife that's why I go through tires so fast.
I
are just terrible.
There's this YouTuber I've been following, Jerry Rig Everything. He's like known for like tearing apart cell phones and doing durability tests. He's got a Humvee that he's doing a EV conversion to, or has done. That's been pretty interesting to watch, because he was talking about the gear reduction boxes and all that, and he's keeping it 4-wheel drive. So that's why I knew about the transfer case that was involved in it.
Yeah, and actually he's got some videos also where he's driving the new electric Hummer from General Motors as well.
Yeah.
He got invited to go on some rides with that. So yeah, he's a neat guy. It sounds like a goofy channel, but he does some really good quality work.
Yeah, he built his I believe it's his wife now, maybe then girlfriend. He built her like an all-terrain wheelchair. She's paralyzed from the waist down. And he built it so that it's affordable for other people to build it. He's done some really cool stuff.
Nice.
Go prepared with Warren Industries. They produced the first recreational winch in 1959 and lead the industry with their dedication to quality and reliability. When you dig yourself in deep, make sure you have the right tools to get yourself out. Get Warren equipped and go where others can't. Now, let's get ready for adventure and head into our main topic.
And tonight we welcome Rob from Element Fire Extinguishers. And I want to start off with our Fast 5 facts. So newer old vehicle?
Old.
Summer or winter camping?
Summer.
Rock, sand, snow, mud, or street?
Well, street, but if I was going off-road, I'd go mud. It seems like the most fun.
Favorite vehicle brand?
Probably Porsche.
And favorite tire?
Michelin, any day. I would otherwise say, like what was it, the Firestone Wilderness that everyone likes to joke about from back in the day. But for me, it's any car I buy, I immediately throw away any tires it has on it, and I buy Michelin's.
Wow, that says a lot.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking a little bit before the show.
Jeremy's quiet again.
Man.
Again.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked a little bit before the show, and I talked with you on the phone. You're not really an off-road guy. You're more of an Italian enthusiast. What are some of your favorite cars?
Yeah, I tend to like old cars. New stuff doesn't really do much for me, but I like old cars, and I have a penchant for Italian vehicles. So right now in my garage, I have a 1-cylinder, a 2-cylinder, 6, 8, and 12-cylinder Italian cars in one capacity or another.
What's the 1-cylinder car? I need to know more about that.
It's not a car, actually. It's a 1949 Vespa. One of my hobbies is car restoration, and it's we bought it from the original owner, and it was in the town that my mother grew up in Italy. So, like, when she saw it, she started crying because she thought maybe she would have seen it in period when she was living in Italy.
Okay, and then what's the 2-cylinder?
The 2-cylinder is a 1964 Fiat 500. Early, like what they call it, Cinquecento, suicide door cars. And that's really my wife's car. And she was featured on a YouTube channel called Petrolicious. So if you go to like YouTube and you look up Speed of Sunshine, you get to see a little video, and you get to meet my wife, and I make a little cameo at the end.
Nice.
And yeah.
Very fun.
Jeremy likes Fiats. He drives one.
So
I changed inputs on the board, so let's see if that makes any difference.
it's
Nope.
not making a difference. What in the world? So with your love of Italian cars, and then you mentioned Porsche,
Mhm.
do you get on the track at all?
Yeah, well, as it happens, I happen to have been racing. In fact, last week was my birthday, and it marked 30 years of racing. It was my first race was 30 years ago. Today's Monday. Yeah, 30 years ago, Monday, a week ago. And so I've been racing cars, actually semi-professionally for that time. I lived in Europe for a while. I got paid a little bit, but never was really a full-on professional or anything like that. And my specialty is endurance racing. So I tend to do 24-hour racing, and I'm lucky enough to have opportunities to do it in other parts of the world. I have a 24-hour race in Belgium later this year, one in Spain. So it's it's really, really cool.
Wow.
It's all road racing stuff, no dirt.
Awesome. Have you been to the Nuremberg then?
I've been to Nürburgring several times. Never with a proper race car, always with rental cars.
Okay.
And it's pretty epic. It's really,
Yeah.
really cool. You think that with 180 something corners or whatever, that there would be some slow ones, and there isn't. Every corner's fast on that track, and
Wow.
it's really, really amazing. Yeah, it's a super cool track.
I've only raced down Gran Turismo, and it's just one of those tracks that's notorious for anybody that loves cars.
Yeah.
I think it's on most car games.
Yep.
I think it's in what's the current Fusa, or I can't
Forza.
There we go. Yeah.
Definitely the Nürburgring, like among exotic cars and stuff like that, or performance cars, the Nürburgring lap time has become sort of the gold standard of what's the best car. It broke the Nürburgring lap time, even though in a lot of cases, especially with the Italian manufacturers, they cheat when they set those lap times. They create ring specials, as they're known.
Oh, I see. So
Mhm.
they bring a stock vehicle,
Of course,
but
very
it's got
stock.
but it's got stickier tires or something like that changed, a
It's
Oh yeah,
tune onto it,
tuned
something.
for that perfection.
Yeah.
certainly not from the assembly line, that's for sure.
Yeah, gotcha.
Well, I talked about this fire extinguisher. What was it? A week or two ago?
Mhm.
This
That was last week, and hey, Rob, we should do a cut of that when we talked about it when Coy was on here. Coy and I mocked Ben a whole
Oh, I
lot.
watched it. Don't you worry.
As
I
he
do my homework.
did you hear it when we were talking about it being chapstick or the
Yeah, that's okay.
yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Mhm.
And it's not your product, it's what we do.
Yeah, no problem.
Ben is sometimes a punching bag for us.
I made a giant punching bag for these guys. If they weren't,
Yeah.
something would be wrong.
And yeah, he flipped off the camera and I called it a really long ring pop or something like that. Yeah. Yeah. It's good times.
Good times. But it really made me go, we should really get these guys on. So I messaged you, and here you are. So we gotta first ask, how did Element Fire Extinguishers come about?
Yeah, so this is not going to be the most popular subject in the world at the moment, but it was originally developed for the Russians, believe it or not. But back when they were okay, guys. So an Italian scientist developed the technology, the chemistry essentially, to be able to put out fires in a manner that doesn't rob breathing oxygen. So in space capsules where there's limited oxygen available, should there be a fire? So they developed the technology, but it was developed as a fixed installation. And the technology has also continued to be used on things like data centers and places to store valuable books and that type of stuff to be able to put out a fire. But the technology then was adapted into a handheld device that was sold to police, military, and special forces around the world for over a decade. And I recognized, along with my business partner, who happens to be my brother, we recognize the value of this product as a consumer good. And so what we were able to do is we were able to acquire the rights for North and South America on the product, and we sell it under the Element brand name that we've created, because the parent company that owns the technology and licenses it to other markets around the world is based in Italy, and the extinguishers are made entirely in Italy. And they're made just outside the town of Turin in northern Italy, where they held the Olympics, I guess, some time back. And so we were one of the early adopters as a commercial product. But the product that you see is the identical unit that military, police, and special forces get. It's in no way detuned or different in any way. I could go on if you like.
No, Jeremy, we're gonna see if his audio is working. and his audio's not. He's still quiet. Still quiet. Jeremy said, "How do they work?"
How do they work? Okay, so let me grab one here. So I happen to have one, and I guess someone's going to be, we'll be showing a demonstration here of one of these operating. But essentially, you'll see, I'll show you in a second how to strike one. But essentially, you're going to see that it's a stick. There's like a gas that comes out of it. And that gas chemically interrupts a fire. So you think about you need fuel, air, and heat to make a fire.
Yes.
So the gas that comes out is, from a technical standpoint, it's called a potassium aerosol salt, and it attaches itself to oxygen in the air, in the area, and that oxygen will no longer stick to the chain of combustion. Just like putting oil under your tires or ice under your tires, you lose grip, and so the oxygen loses grip. Chemicals together and strike it.
Nope, sorry.
Oh, that was me in the background. So, and then I guess I can show you. I have one right here. And to actually deploy one, you take a cap off. It exposes a chemical on the tip. And in the base, you pull this guy off. It's like a little striker. You scratch the two tip surfaces together, and it starts the chemical reaction. And the gas flows out. And the cool thing about it is that the gas will make no mess of any kind. A regular fire extinguisher, if you pull the bottle and pull this trigger, you get 9 to 11 seconds of discharge. This, you get 50 to 60 seconds of discharge. So it's a lot more. And because it's a solid chemical charge, it's not affected by temperature, vibration, humidity, extremes of temperature, hot or cold. It's a very, very stable extinguisher, and there's no compressed gas. So there's effectively no life to the extinguisher.
Now we got an echo. This is really weird for our show. We don't always have these audio problems. Sorry, Rob.
That's all right.
It looked like, so I didn't know that ahead of time how you operated one, so it was neat to see you show us. It kind of looked like a road flare, how you activate a road flare. So I guess maybe if someone has experience with a road flare, you would have experience with one of these.
Absolutely. In fact, the striking mechanism was preferred by police, military, special forces units because it's really good under high stress environments. And a lot of people say, "Hey, make a pull start or whatever have you." That only gives you one chance. If something goes wrong with that mechanism, it's not good. This one, you have multiple chances. Gotcha. And in a panic situation, it was preferred because of not only the ease of use, but it's also very, very intuitive. All the videos that we have on our website, we used somebody who had never used the extinguisher before, and it's shot in one take. So we tried to be as genuine as possible about it.
I like that. So this question says, do I need to worry about wind or rain affecting the extinguisher? And I want to ask that in two ways. So will the wind and rain affect the extinguisher while you're using it? And will they affect it like if you have it stored somewhere? I guess maybe rain would probably affect it, but like if you've got this on the roll bar of your Jeep Wrangler and you got the top down and it's rained on it a couple times or whatever, is that gonna affect it much?
No, you'll be fine. Again, I'll pull out one of these extinguishers here. So it's essentially a solid chemical charge inside of an aluminum and stainless steel tube. What you do want to do is this plastic cap on the tip. That has to stay on because you want to keep the chemicals underneath dry. But you can't submerge it, but you could easily have it rained on, and the same with the base. And the extinguisher is stable from minus 140 to positive 340 Fahrenheit. So as we say, unless you keep it in a pizza oven, you're good to go.
Okay. What happens if you put it in a pizza oven?
I've never actually tried.
Okay. All right. I've just checked. I mean, we took a pizza oven camping with us last time, and we were known to do some fun shenanigans while we were camping. So I just, kind of curious. All right. So then how about when you're using it, if it's like a torrential rain, is that going to affect it? Or if it's really, really windy?
No, the rain won't affect it. It'll strike and operate underwater. In fact, one of the videos of our website, it started and we put it in and out of water, a bucket of water, and it keeps operating. So that's not a problem.
very similar to a road flare then, like with
Correct.
sticking in water.
Yep, it'll act in the absence of oxygen, if you will. Now, where you will get a challenge, though, and it's not really particular to our extinguisher, but there are different classes of extinguisher. So the typical extinguisher that you get is a solid type extinguisher. It pumps out a powder, and the job of the powder is like throwing a blanket over a fire to cover it. So extinguishers that throw out solids are obviously the most effective in a high wind circumstance, because the way they work is by dumping a solid on top of a fire. Other types of extinguishers, like a CO2 extinguisher, a halon extinguisher, or something like ours, operates on the premise that you are creating a cloud of containment around the fire. And obviously, if it's very, very windy, it's difficult to do that. What I'll qualify by saying that is that there is every kind of extinguisher. I don't care what kind it is. I can create a circumstance where it will do fabulously well, or terribly.
Sure.
And in fairness to ours, the weakness would be in a windy circumstance, which makes it no different than any other kind of gas-based extinguisher. But the advantages come in that in places where you don't have a direct line of sight. Perfect example would be the backside of a dash. You get a dash fire. Well, the gas will go and fill all those crevices and take care of the fire, whereas a powder extinguisher, beyond the obvious mess that comes along with it, still requires a direct line of sight for the powder to be able to operate.
So just stand upwind.
Yes, I mean, being upwind is advantageous, and we've had lots of, we've had lots of great success stories from people who have contacted us of things that happened outside. In fact, in our Instagram page, we profiled a guy that stopped at the side of the road to put out a brush fire. So that was a really cool win for us.
Nice. So is you mentioned that it's a potassium that attaches itself to oxygen. So is that safe to breathe? Can I breathe in the gas? Am I going to get sick from it?
So the gas is perfectly safe to breathe. The entire process lasts about 20 minutes till it naturally biodegrades and goes away. And for anyone who's maybe a little bit interested to know a bit more, they're more technically minded. In the FAQ section of our website, there's a technical dissertation with drawings that kind of explain technically what is happening for people that are a bit more chemistry savvy than I am.
Will you kind of notice if you're breathing it in, or does it just go in like, yeah?
No, it'll go in and out, no problem. The only thing is when you discharge one, it's technically a pyrotechnic. So there's a chemical reaction that's taking place. The gas comes out because of the natural expansion, and there is even a tiny flame front that can't burn anything because it's being surrounded by this fire-killing gas. And so what it smells like a firework going off. So you get a very distinctive smell of, I mean, the best thing I can use, like when you light off a Roman candle or something like that, there's that smell that comes out of them is very, very distinctive.
I like firework smells.
So I'm hearing we pretend like you're throwing a flare into the fire, and then you throw it into the fire when you're camping, and everybody gets mad at you for it.
Well, it would be a very expensive joke.
Yeah.
Maybe
relative to a stick or a flare.
Maybe you throw it close enough to the fire so it's not in the fire. I wonder if you throw it in, like, so it lands just at the edge of the fire when it goes off. That way it will extinguish into the fire. Well,
Realistically, what you can do is it's supposed to be a handheld tool where you will actively fight the fire. Mm-hmm. And when you are fighting a fire, it's a little bit like being in a fist fight with somebody. You're throwing a punch and you're defending and all that stuff. So you'll find that when you're fighting a fire, the fire will want to try to seek out new oxygen, and so you'll be moving around a little bit, and it's all very, very intuitive when you're doing it. But in an enclosed environment, let's say you call it the interior of a car, maybe in a small shed or something like that, or in an oven, you could light it, throw it in, close the door, and then the natural saturation of the gas will put the fire out.
When I was watching videos and I was watching videos. Then I was looking for artwork for the our cover art that I did for this episode. I I was looking for like Jeeps and stuff that had caught on fire, and one that came to mind was a
Coyote Works.
Coyote Works out of Oregon, his Jeep catching fire, and his was an under the hood fire. And I was like, man, if he would have had like an element fire extinguisher, just being able to crack the hood open enough to stick that under there might have prevented that Jeep from going completely
So
under.
Ben, you raise an excellent point. One of the big dangers of dealing with an under hood fire is that when you open the hood, regardless of the extinguisher you have, you've just fed a rush of fresh oxygen to the fire. So one of the cool things with our extinguisher is that, assuming that you maintain the presence of mind during an emergency, if you crack the hood a little bit, you can fog the inside of the hood, and then when you open it, the new oxygen can't penetrate to the other one, unless, of course, it's hurricane conditions. But under normal circumstances, that opening of the hood will prevent that sudden growth of the fire and make it very, very easy to take care of the last little bit.
Cool. So what types of fires are your guys' extinguishers rated for?
So in the world of fire extinguishers, there are some rating classes. So we have A, B, C, and K. So A is your solid trash fires, that kind of thing, loose trash, wood, anything which is a solid. B is fuels, gases, those types of natural gas, that type of thing. C is electrical fires, and in fact, the extinguisher is unusually good on electrical fires up to 10,000 volts. And lastly is K, which is kitchen oils and fats, which raises an interesting point. One of the most common fires in a household is your kitchen oil pan fire. And a regular extinguisher, like a red bottle extinguisher, produces a lot of thrust. And if you point it at a burning oil pan, you're going to blow the oil out of the pan and create a big fireball. That's why for the kitchen, normally the extinguishers are white. The nozzle is actually different so that it produces less thrust. But ours is the only extinguisher that actually carries both A, B, C, and K. Because one of the most common things that we get is, we're car enthusiasts, off-road enthusiasts, and people say, well, it's good for my kitchen. Fire doesn't ask for permission. It burns. It's the same fire. It's the same fire everywhere. So these are great for anywhere where fire could potentially be a risk.
And with the with overlanding becoming a big thing, your vehicle is also your kitchen. Imagine that.
Yeah, well, we've made huge inroads into the overlanding community, and I won't lie to you. When I started this a few years back, I didn't know that overlanding even existed, and it opened my eyes to this wonderful community of some really, really great people. But as one person put it to me, says, when you're overlanding, if you got a fire, you didn't just lose, a vehicle, you lost your house. And that can be a very, very serious thing.
Yeah. So can you tell us, you've kind of jumped on a couple of the items, but maybe tell us some of the differences between a regular fire extinguisher, like a 5-pound something that someone would bring in their vehicle, and the element.
So a 5-pound fire bottle is actually about 7.5 pounds. And as I mentioned, if you pull the trigger, you're going to get about 9 to 11 seconds of discharge. Our extinguisher does 50 to 60 seconds of discharge. We say 50, but very, very rarely do we see anything approaching 50. It's normally 60 and above. The difference also is storage. They're much more stable for storage. They're smaller. They make no mess of any kind when you discharge one. You don't have to worry about replacing them every few years because they have no effective shelf life to them. And naturally, the smaller form factor means that you can carry and put an extinguisher in places where otherwise it wouldn't be practical. In my personal case, I have old Italian cars. which are known for leaking oil and burning. And I'll be the first to say that I've wanted to carry. Well, in an Italian car, when it's if it stops leaking, it's out of oil. I mean, that's just the way it is. And so I've known that I had to carry one, but it's cumbersome and it's a small cabin and this and that. Now it's something that fits in a door pocket. It's so light, at half a pound, it doesn't even have any meaningful inertia.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
Yeah, that's
a good point.
definitely a whole lot safer than having a 7-pound fire extinguisher hitting you in the back of the head.
It's less than ideal. And in extreme off-roading conditions, because we've supported a number of teams that have raced at the NORA 1000. Mm-hmm. And in fact, a team called Roth Sport Racing is going to be running this weekend in the NORA 1000. They've won their class in the 1000, the 500. We've been told that it's not uncommon for the heads of extinguishers to break off just due to the pounding of that kind of high-speed off-road running. And the extinguisher will just go off while you're driving. No such risks with ours.
I really see why FCA picked up Jeep now. That if it's out of oil, it's because it's all on the ground. You need to fill it back up again.
Roth Sport Racing is like a half an hour from me, just down the road.
Oh, the guys, yeah. So they are the go-to guys. Jeff Gamroth over there is the go-to guy if you want a hot rod Porsche motor. And he's got them lined up down the street because he's the guy in the U.S. for a hot rodded air-cooled Porsche motor.
I'm gonna make a note here. Maybe we'll have them on to talk about how the NORA 1000 went.
Yeah, wonderful guys. The guys you want to talk with is, as I said, Jeff Gamroth over there. And, for the life of me, the other gentleman his name escapes me at the moment. I'll be sure to send it to you guys, but okay. Lovely guys.
So I've got another question about
Sure.
the comparison. In a previous profession that I did, I was in charge of making sure that the fire extinguishers every year were recertified and checked, mm-hmm. and the guy would come out and punch the card, replace the card, beat him with a hammer, all those things they got to do. Is your extinguisher rated to just replace? So let's say I had a business and I've got 40 fire extinguishers. I've got them on equipment. I've got them in buildings. I can just put them in. The fire marshal's cool with it, and I never have to have anybody come out and certify them again.
So I would love to say yes, but the answer is no. And that is the single most common question that we have, and it brought up a good point. So what happens is in the United States, there are a few places where fire extinguishers are regulated. Commercial vehicles, an office or warehouse space. And I saw that somebody mentioned about Coast Guards. Coast Guard defers to the UL standard. So UL is Underwriters Laboratories. Mm-hmm. You look at a lot of stuff, it's got like a little UL on it. Now, UL is a private entity. It's a private company that essentially does the certification standards for all kinds of different things to determine whether they're, say, building material products, and fire extinguishers fall under their purview. So the extinguisher has lots of international standards, some of them much more demanding than UL. But the problem that we run into is in North America, UL has two testing standards. They have a testing standard which has two components to it. There's a performance component and there's a form component. And because our extinguisher, because the element does not conform to what UL says an extinguisher looks like, which is a compressed gas cylinder, a hose, a nozzle, those things, they look at it and they say, well, we're not going to test it. So it's not eligible. It's not eligible for testing.
Because it doesn't have those features.
Because it doesn't have the features. So we had one of two, and we knew this going in.
Yeah.
And we didn't think of this as a huge roadblock. I mean, naturally, we'd be printing money if we had UL across the board. But there are tons of environments that are non-regulated. And in regulated environments, there's nothing keeping you from having it as a supplement. Coast Guard's a perfect example. There are lots of customers that we have that keep on in easy-to-reach places in their boat. And if they get boarded by the Coast Guard, they have the bare minimum in an impossible to get to part of the boat. So getting back to when we got started, our thinking was very, very clear. We have one of two options. We either pursue UL privately, spend millions of dollars, and try to get them to change their mind. And just by the way, the board of directors of UL is made up of executives from our competition. So just that tiny little detail of the fox guarding the hen house. But
Yes.
that said, they still are. They still need to respond to market demand. So our thought was we were going to enter the marketplace. We're going to be very, very transparent about where you're allowed to and not allowed to, and we're not going to do anything dodgy that way. But we're going to create enough market demand that it's going to eventually force UL to change the definitions of their standards.
That would be awesome.
That's the goal.
That's a good way to approach it.
Mm-hmm.
Travis in the comments says that he stores his in the overhead molly panel in his Jeep, and there is zero rattle up there, which is cool.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for being a customer. But another challenge that you get along a lot of times with powder type extinguishers is particularly off-roading is a good example. You have a cylinder that has a powder in it, and multiple hot cold cycles create condensation on the inside of the cylinder, and then the little bit of shaking, you've just created a little cement mixer. So a lot of times the gauge will actually show that it has pressure. It does physically have pressure, but the powder on the inside has solidified, and you can't do anything about it. That's why in a lot of cases the quote unquote certification process, when the guy comes out once a year, as he pulls the extinguisher, he shakes it a little bit, stamps your piece of paper, then off he goes.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a great talk on why you guys don't ship out test samples.
Yep.
And I wanted you to help educate some fellow enthusiasts on why that is, because it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, so what happens is we get a lot of requests, particularly from YouTubers and that kind of stuff. And people say to us, hey, send me one, I'm going to do a video online. And as much as I would absolutely adore to do that on a regular basis, the problem is if we give something to someone under the express knowledge that they're going to go and start a fire and something goes sideways with regards to the fire, we can be held criminally liable for the fire, even in another state or in another country.
Wow.
Yep, it's one of those things. So if you go to our website, one of the things you'll see is that we were invited to Jay Leno's garage to showcase the product. And it was actually a bit of a cool deal. It'll be me on the video. And I was at a car show, and a friend of mine introduced me to Jay, and I showed him the extinguisher, and he looks at me and says, well, I got 2 million YouTube followers. You got to come to the garage and share this with my followers. So he has me over at the garage, but it all came together really last minute, and there wasn't time to call the fire marshal, get a proper test done and all that stuff. And it was in the middle of wildfire season in California as well, which made it even harder. So what had happened was when we did the take, I had supplied him with some stock footage, and it was supposed to be included. There was even a sort of a verbal segue in, and that never made it to the final cut. So people are like, oh, you guys showed a video with no fire. And the reason was we couldn't get a firefighter in time. And when we tried to use the footage, we couldn't get it out there. So one of the things we try to do as a company is we try to be as transparent as possible in the way that we present the product. The videos that we do, we tend to shoot them in one take. We get people without experience to do it. We don't want something that's choreographed, because we want to try to replicate a real life situation. In fact, our website has a video of a guy using it for the first time. And what we had him do is we had him run around the building, and it's a pretty big building. So he was well-winded. And I said, okay, pick this up, figure it out. And what you see on the video is one try. And he had it going within 10 seconds.
You mentioned YouTubers and people reaching out to you, and it reminded me of that terrible video that we have that we're going to get changed soon of Ben doing a Colby valve. And Ben is known for saying, hey, I want to slash your tire so I can replace it with a Colby valve.
Valve stem.
Sorry. Slash your valve stem, not your tire.
And it wasn't theirs, it was mine. It's like, hey, I'll go slash with mine. We can switch it out.
And if
No,
he doesn't like you, he offers to slash your tire and see if you notice.
So here's what I'm thinking is Ben's got an Element fire extinguisher. She's like, hey, let me set your car on fire. I want to show you how to put it out. Just like the Colby valve slashing the valve stem. He's like, I'm so excited about this product. Let me set your car on fire.
The other thing as well that I'll put into perspective as well is that most people have a skewed perception of what a fire extinguisher can do. Forget about ours. I'm talking about fire extinguishers in general.
Okay.
And fire extinguishers are generally for incipient stage fires. If you have a car where fire's licking out of the wheel wells, that's a call to the fire truck. But it's most fires, and again, fires that are like a Michael Bay film where they just kind of explode are an insane rarity. Normally, it's a little incipient stage fire that takes hold and then grows. And that's what fire extinguishers are for. So in a lot of instances, you get people like, I want to do a test. And for them, their test is, 5 gallons of fuel spread out and something you can see from space. And I'm sorry, 10 extinguishers aren't going to help you in that case. A fire truck will struggle a little bit in that case.
Casey from Coyote Works, who we mentioned, he actually did use his fire extinguisher, and the fire had gone too far for the 8 or 7 seconds that he had of spraying power. And that's why I really thought like the Element, with how long it sprays for, would have been more beneficial.
And you raise a good point, Ben, because what happens is most people, the time they use the extinguisher is the first time they use it. So you figure 9 to 11 seconds, you lose 3-4 seconds getting your bearings, seeing what the spray pattern is like, that type of thing. And you really start losing a lot of juice at around 7 seconds. And so it's important to have that extra bit of time to kind of get your bearings right.
Eric mentions that he would highly recommend that people contact your local fire department and ask about fire extinguisher training. Back in the day, we used to do these on a regular basis. So I assume Eric was in the fire department or is in the fire department somehow. I have done those trainings with the fire department at the previous companies that I worked at. They would come out and take all the employees through, and they'd have a whole bunch of expired extinguishers, and they'd light a something on fire, and they teach everybody how to PASS with their fire extinguisher.
Yep, so definitely experience is a good thing. But one thing that did capture my interest the first time I've ever used one it was a lot less, I don't want to use the term intimidating, but it was a lot more accessible than a regular extinguisher would be, if you will. Once it deploys, you feel more comfortable with it. You can one-hand it. It feels more natural.
You can go Harry Potter with it. Harry Potter might be a good spokesperson. You might have to look into that, Rob. Oh my goodness.
So what kind of mounting options do you guys offer for your extinguishers?
Yeah, so mounting options have always been very popular. When you buy an extinguisher, it immediately comes with a little plastic clip where you can mount it to a wall or something like that. But beyond that, we have a series of mounts available, mainly a magnetic mount, which is great to put it on your hoist, toolbox. I have one on the fridge next to the stove. So anything that could be a metallic surface. So the magnetic one is very, very handy. Another great place you could put it next to like a welder as well. So really handy that way. We do have, we use some of the Quick Fist products, which you guys are probably familiar with.
Yep.
So those heavy duty rubber mounts. And actually I have right here, this is one of our most popular mounts. And this is an aluminum mount that we have made that goes onto a roll bar. You can go anything up to about 3 inches of roll bar width, and using a couple of hose clamps, it'll fix it to a roll cage. And with 2 clips, and we also have this additional Velcro strap, which is just strong enough that you can overcome it with a good pull, but adds that extra little bit of vibration protection. And these are the ones that were on the Nora 1000 vehicles. So we know we have at least 1,000 miles of proper testing on these.
Nice.
They hold up really well.
I was going to ask you if you could just rip it through the Velcro. So that's good to hear that you guys made it that way. As you are talking your way through things, you mentioned putting on a welder and we talked about engine fires, and my brain just keeps reminding me of all the different car fires I've had. So people don't know, but I've had a lot of car fires. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you guys. So I'll give you a bit, a little story from my youth. In 1996, I raced the support event for the Toronto Molson Indy, and it was in a Nissan, and it was a 1 hour race, 30 minutes per driver. As soon as I got in the car on the first lap, the engine threw a rod through the block, put oil all over the exhaust, set the entire car on fire.
Wow.
And mind you, I was a teenager at the time, so your brain works a little differently, because the two things that went through my head when I was driving the car, which, by the way, I made the highlight reel of the evening news on that one, was one, my mom just washed this race suit and it's really clean. I don't want to get it dirty. And secondly, it costs $300 to refill this fire bottle, so I'm just going to pull over and get the firefighter to put the fire out. But as we've matured, we've learned that it's much better to just use the fire extinguisher.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So let's talk about using fire extinguisher. So like I said, I've got experience. I've sprayed that white powder everywhere. What kind of cleanup do you have to do with your fire extinguisher?
None. It's a totally clean discharge. There's no solid that comes out of it. The worst thing that comes out is that the chemical charge that's inside of it is kept in a cardboard tube. So if you were to technically put it on like a white sheet, you might get a light dusting of black powder. But we're talking frictional. I mean, it's the difference between being able to hit someone with a white suit and who's wearing a white suit and not. But it's effectively a totally clean discharge. There's no cleanup.
Very nice. That's helpful. Yeah, I've had to clean that white powder out of several different things. In the comments, Eric wants to know if the technique is the same. Shoot at the base.
Yes and no. So the shooting at the base is what you do when you want to smother a fire. Remember, in this particular case, the gas attacks the oxygen that feeds the fire. So there is, it's more effective to actually be just above the base of the fire and go and just move it around. And that becomes immediately obvious. As soon as you start using one, you'll see that the fire will try to seek out clean oxygen, if you will, and it becomes very, very easy to realize that that's taking place. And that technique is no different than any other type of gaseous type fire extinguisher, because as I told you guys, I mean, in the world of fire extinguishers, like the cheap bottom of the range are the powder extinguishers. Those are the ones you get at Home Depot or Walmart, that kind of stuff. And then you go up into CO2, halon, halotron, those types of extinguishers, which are premium extinguishers, but you are way more expensive. They're much, much more expensive. Ours is about 30% more than a powder extinguisher, but half the price of any of the other clean options. And of course, if you're not replacing it on the first duty cycle, you're even cheaper than a powder extinguisher, and one less thing to worry about.
Is there anybody you mentioned in the NOR 1000 some racers using, is there anybody in the endurance racing that uses anything like that? I know they've got like you pull something in it and it has nozzles throughout the cabin. And
correct. So it's important to distinguish between a fire system and a fire extinguisher. I mean, a fire system, I would never dissuade anyone who's willing to spend the money from having a fire system in their car, because you'll have dedicated nozzles to your personal body and to the engine bay. And you know, they're very powerful systems. They have a lot of things going for them. The downside is that you don't necessarily have nozzles where the fire is at that particular time. So a lot of road racing championships have allowed elements to be an option for them over and above the fire system. So the fire system is optional, and and a handheld extinguisher is also optional, because they recognize the value not only being able to put out a fire in your own vehicle, but that a competitor can get to another vehicle faster than a marshal could get to.
Certainly, that's a great idea. I didn't think about that. When you're when you're road racing, you can't unstrap that fire system and take it
Of
to
course.
another vehicle. It's hard mounted, hard lines. It's just your vehicle.
Yep.
That's
And,
good. That's
and
great.
for that type of weight and everything, the penalty, there's essentially no weight penalty to carrying a fire bottle. In a road race car, carry an extra 7 pounds, it means something. Carry a half a pound, not as bad.
Not as much. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, Rob, really got to thank you for coming on the show. We really appreciate it and talking about Element with us. Where can our listeners find you?
So our main website, and I shamelessly plugged it in the bottom as well, is elementfire.com. And on that site, you can find pretty well all the information you'd ever want on the extinguisher, including videos, how-tos, FAQs, and you can do online ordering. And then on social media, on both Facebook and Instagram, we're at Official Element Fire. And we would urge anyone who can to try to follow us, because we do regular giveaways. We do cash and product giveaways.
Oh, wow.
And what we do is, if we do a giveaway and you're a customer within 30 days, not only do you win the giveaway, you get your order, regardless of what it was, for free.
Nice.
So we don't want to discourage someone saying, I'm not going to order. It's actually better if you order. But we're trying to get a few extra followers, and we also, on our Instagram, we don't want to turn it into a commercial thing. So we try to showcase people who have the product, give firefighting tips. So you go to social media to be entertained, not to be sold to. And so we try to keep that good feeling going in social media. And I will also add as well that for followers of the podcast, between now and May the 8th, if you use the coupon code, and I'll just check right here, it's Off-Road Podcast, you'll get 10% off of your order, anything that you order. And if you buy something and you happen to be a winner of our contest as well, whether you bought, we had one person once that not only won the contest, they had like $2,000 order, and their day came up and they got it for free.
Wow, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Eric wants to know if it's all one word, Off-Road Podcast for your
one word,
code.
lowercase, yes, and
Okay.
So that's and you fill that in at the checkout of elementfire.com.
Okay, and sweet, yeah. Well, that's awesome. I hope our listeners take advantage of that 10% coupon code. That'd be great.
But before we go, I will tell you that I've had one off-roading experience.
Okay.
Well, there are two things. I wasn't sure if you were going to ask me what my favorite off-roading vehicle is, because I do have one. I'd have a Mercedes-Benz Unimog.
Oh, very cool.
That would definitely be that would definitely have one of those. And I did have one experience, and you guys will probably laugh at me a bit, but it's an entertaining enough story. Good way to end the night. And my wife and I went to go visit a friend of mine in the Middle East, and we were between Abu Dhabi, Oman, and Dubai, on a little road that didn't even appear on GPS. And so we pulled off. It was approaching sunset, and we wanted to catch sort of the sunset over the sand dunes. So it was in a Ford Fusion, parked it on some sand, went out, watched the sun go down. Then I came back as the sun had come down already, and the wind had picked up, and it had blown sand around the car. So I get in the car, I go forwards about 2 inches, the car just drops in high centers. And now I'm stuck in the middle of the Arabian desert with no clue of what to do or how to get out. I get out, pull the floor mats out, try them under the tires. This was definitely not an airing down situation. I was stuck. I was good and stuck. So where we got lucky was we saw a tour coming back, because it turns out that where we pulled off was the starting point for a tour. So I waved the guy down, explained to him my problem. And he comes over with a tow rope, and I get underneath the car, and there's no tow hook on the back of this vehicle. So I just find the first thing, which ended up being the sway bar, and I put the strap around it. The guy pulls, you hear this banging sound, and sure enough, we're out and we're good to go. Thank you very much, sir. And we're on our way. So we start driving down the road. And again, this road that's on no map of any kind. And I go about a mile, and all of a sudden the car suddenly tightens up and starts pulling to one direction. So I pull over at the side of the road. Driver's side rear brake disc is glowing red hot. Red hot. It's now complete darkness. We're literally being passed by wild camels walking down the street in the absolute middle of nowhere. First thing I tell my wife is, look, take anything of value out of this car, because if this car burns, we're screwed. There's no cell phone reception. We are literally in the middle of nowhere. So what I did was I picked the car up, took the wheel off, and realized that when I got towed out, the sway bar got pulled out of its moorings, jammed itself up against the caliper, and was locking the rear caliper in place. So I had to figure out a way of taking care of this, and limited tools, all that. So I lower the car onto the spare tire. I used the jack and the weight of the car against it to push against the sway bar, add pressure, then all of a sudden, bam, the thing releases. Great. Wheel now turns freely. I now have to get the sway bar completely out of its moorings, out of the way. So I go into the car, cut one of the seat belts off, tie it up around the chassis, put the wheel back on, drove the car for another week, and returned to the rental agents.
With the cut up seatbelt and a broken sway bar.
That's right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's rental cars for you.
Yeah.
So don't go off-roading in a Ford Fusion.
I'm really surprised to hear that there was a Ford Fusion in the UAE region. I didn't expect to hear about that car being out there.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you another story, and this is a bad one, but I'll tell it anyway. So the parent company that does the fire extinguishers out of Italy, they did a military meeting with some military group, and so they were like, yeah, we tested the extinguisher. Let me show you the video. So they pull out the video, and they lit a guy on fire. You talk about so they lit a guy on fire. And so the owner of the company in Italy looks at him and says, "What are you guys doing?" He said, "Oh, don't worry, he's from a lower class." And they're
he's a private. He's not enlisted. He's not a sergeant. He's a private.
And they say you can have the video. It's like, no, we don't want any part of this.
That is
he's
so
in
awesome.
the lower class. It's okay.
Oh,
it's okay from a lower class. Set him on fire.
I can't wait to tell some of my military friends that story. That's a great story. That's hilarious.
That is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we just want to thank everybody who listens to us weekly, and also to those who watch us live on YouTube. We really appreciate you guys. You guys are always hanging out until the last second, and we really appreciate that. Please share us with your friends and help us grow, and God bless America.
Don't forget to visit Patriot Patch and join the Patch of the Month Club. Check out our Gaia affiliate link for up to 40% off. Also, don't forget to head over to Warren, Medical Gear Outfitters, and Kobe Valve to see all their great gear. We're a proud part of the Firearms Radio Network. Got a comment or question? Send it to us through our webpage at firearmsradio.net or through our social media channels by searching for Off-Road Podcast. Also, you can listen to us live at overlandradio.com Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific. When off-road, please remember to have fun, tread lightly, be safe, and courteous. Thanks for listening.
It's okay. He's from a lower class, right?